The Silvendi, the people of war. One of the 5 tribes of men, the Silvendi are a dark-haired, pale, blue-eyed, and fair-skinned race. They are predominantly concentrated in and around the Great Plains to the west of the Nayur Empire, a region known as the Junati Steppe. Their culture is made up of multiple tribes, each led by a chieftain. When the people are not fighting amongst themselves from tribal disagreements, they herd cattle. In the warm confines of their yaksh, they breed more warriors. They drink the blood of their horses and eat amakut, a ration consisting of wild herbs and berries beaten into dried sections of beef. The memorialists, those members of a Scylvendi tribe, typically the old and infirm, entrusted with the memorization and recitation of the Scylvendi oral tradition, tell stories of great warriors and battles of the past. When not warring, they prepare for war. The only nation of men to swear allegiance to the no-god in the first apocalypse, the Scylvendi are despised by most civilized cultures of Ierwa, seen as nothing more than barbarous murderers. They strike fear into the hearts of their enemies, singing praises to Lokung, the dead god. They cover themselves in swazuns, ceremonial scars used by Scylvendi warriors to denote foes slain in battle, believed by some to be markers of stolen strength. One such tribe is the Cnaiur, located in the heart of the central steppe. As the tribe closest to the imperial frontier, the Cnaiur are the traditional brokers of 3 seas rumor and knowledge among the Scylvendi. In the northwest extremes of the Kiyuth steppe lies the Utmote tribe. Among the Scylvendi, the Utmote are noted as the tribe of both Uthgai and Horiotha, the 2 greatest conquerors in their history. While the Utmote may be ignorant of Nanserian politics, they are one of the few northern tribes that can lay claim to battling with Shrunk on their northern frontier. Only during times of war do the people elect a king of tribes. In the early summer of 4110, year of the Tusk, the great tribes gather near the shadow of the Hithanta mountain range. A foolish Nanserian general has mustered a great force of soldiers on their sacred ground. The Scylvendi will not tolerate such desecration. By invading the steppe, the general had welded the people together, and so had delivered the empire to its greatest peril in a generation. Ikirai Confis, the exalt general of Nayur and nephew to the emperor himself, has kicked a hornet's nest. Nayur Urs Skiotha, chieftain of the Utmote tribe, climbs a hill on his warhorse. He finds himself amidst the other tribe leaders, furious as to why he was not summoned like the rest. None offer him the proper respect he is owed, especially the elected king of tribes, a warrior named Zunarit. Nayur knows the truth of why they disgrace him, but he was not a child. He was the many-blooded chieftain of the Utmote, a seasoned Scylvendi warrior of more than 45 summers. He owned 8 wives and more than 300 cattle. He had fathered 37 sons, 19 of the pure blood. His arms were ribbed with swazuns, ritual trophy scars of more than 200 dead foes. He was Nayur, breaker of horses and men. Not a man among them had murdered half as many as he. Nayur and Zunarit share an immediate dislike of each other. There is a tension in the cold mountain air. Nayur tells the group that the Scylvendi hordes shouldn't be too hasty in attacking. The men disapprove. Nayur warns them, telling them that patience is the key to a victory over Confis. Persistence will see them victorious. The Nayur general and his soldiers are not accustomed to life in the Junati steppe. In time, fear and hunger will destroy their morale. Zunarit disagrees, saying, "No. The memorialists say that battle is our hearth, earth our womb, and sky our yaksh. We've been violated, as surely as if Confis had quickened our wives or cracked our hearthstone. Violated, desecrated, humiliated. We're beyond measuring tactical advantages, Utmote. 8 years previously, Nayur and the Scylvendi won a stunning victory over the Phantom at the Battle of Skiotha. Patience is what allowed the Scylvendi to be victorious. Nayur himself was the one who had struck down the Kian general, Hasjanet. Aknai One-Eye, the chieftain of the powerful Munuati tribe, calls out to the assembly. He questions the group on how long they can afford to wait. Soon the droughts will begin. The herds must be driven to summer pasture. An overlong absence possesses many perils for the people of war. Confis has not come with a meager force. The Kidruhil, the most celebrated cohort of heavy cavalry in the Three Seas, ride by his side. He has brought a staggering amount of supplies. Nayur knows that Confis too is expecting a war of endurance. The Exalt General intends to wait until hunger or pride forces the tribes to attack. None of the other tribe leaders side with Nayur. The men have made their decision. The tribes will attack. Tomorrow, Zunarit declared, nervously yanking his roan toward the distant Nayur encampment. We shall sacrifice an entire nation to the dead god. Tomorrow, we put an empire to the knife. The next morning, the tribes prepare for their assault. Nayur horns blare from beneath the mountains. Nayur surveys the field while the Nayur beat upon their shields. Phalanxes of infantry form a great segmented band across the open ground between the river and the fortified Nayur encampment. The Nayur occupy the middle ground, something Nayur finds strange. Banut, Nayur's dead father's brother, rides to his side. He asks Nayur why the Nayur would deploy so close to their encampment instead of using the river to deny them their charge. Seasons previously, while raiding the Empire, Nayur had captured several Nayur soldiers. They spoke reverently of their Exalt General, of his martial brilliance, of his daring tactics and novel training regiments. Nayur knows that the Scylvendi have vastly underestimated their foe. Banut is just like all the others. He hates Nayur. He has never forgiven him for the murder of his father, Banut's brother. Nayur dismisses his uncle, sending him to get more information from the King of Tribes. Nayur reflects on how he is treated by his fellow kinsmen. Always they spoke to one another and never to him. It was as though he were a dead man in their midst. Stubborn hate brimmed within him, a hate that ensured he would not yield, no matter how many indignities they heaped upon him, no matter how many whispers or guarded looks. He would murder all and any, foe and kinsman alike, before he would yield. Banut and Yersalka, a fellow warrior of Nayur's tribe, come to his side. They tell Nayur that the Utmote are to take the southernmost sections of the fords, then position themselves opposite the Nazareth column. Nayur recognizes the standard of the 9th column on the left side of Confis's army. The men of the Nazareth are rumored to be among the Empire's finest warriors. It is either a great honor to be trusted to go against such a strong foe, or Zunarit hopes to murder Nayur. The Utmote charge. They make quick work of the front-line skirmishers that stand before the main body of the Nayur army. They swing south and make ready to charge into the bulk of the Nayur army. Nayur's uncle rides next to him. You, the old warrior said, shall be measured this day, Nayur ers Skiotha. Measure is unceasing. Nayur gaped at the man, overcome by fury and astonishment. This is not the place, uncle, to revisit old wounds. Concerns, suspicions, and premonitions beset Nayur, but he knows there is no time. The pilgrimage had ended. The worship was about to begin. Arrows begin to descend upon the Utmote. Men atop their horses begin to crumble all around him. But he spurs his mount faster, howling the Utmote battle cry, war and worship. The Nayur pikemen rush closer. Nayur's horse is speared in the chest, and he's thrown on the ground. The Nayur ranks were largely unbroken, and they fought with stubborn professionalism. The Utmote suddenly seemed wild and thin before them, impoverished in their undyed leather and looted armor. To either side, his kinsmen were being cut down. He saw Okir, his cousin, pulled from his horse by hooks and cudgeled on the ground. He glimpsed his nephew Maliti thrash beneath falling swords, still shrieking the Utmote battle cry. Nayur glances behind him, expecting to see the second wave of reinforcements. Instead, all he sees is the tribesmen milling about, watching as the Utmote gets slaughtered. Treachery. Nayur finds his uncle, wounded, fumbling with his stomach as though he cradled a toy. Nayur stared at him in horror. "What have you done?" "Killed you. Killed the kinslayer." Horns blared through the uproar. Between heartbeats, Nayur saw his father in Banut's grizzled face. "I watched you that night," Banut wheezed, his voice growing more pinched with agony. "I saw the truth of what happened those 30 years past. I told all the truth. Now the Utmote will be delivered from the oppression of your disgrace. I know all. I saw the way you looked at him. I know he was your lover. Yours is the name of our shame. By the dead god, I would see it blotted out." Nayur's blood feels like gravel. He turns away to blink back tears. Weeper. "No," he snarled, turning back to Banut. The old iron rage had at last found him. "I am Nayur Urs Skiotha, breaker of horses and men. None have murdered so many. None bear as many holy scars. I'm the measure of disgrace and honor. Your measure." Nayur strangles his uncle. He turns and finds that the Nansir soldiers now surround him. He fights with savage fury. Nayur cried out and raised his scarred arms, mighty tokens of his bloody past. "Who?" he roared in their womanish tongue. "Who among you shall take the knife to my arms?" The advancing ranks engulf Nayur and the few remaining Utmote. Before they can escape Nayur's savagery, the other tribes finally decide to join the fray. Nayur rushes to a hill, trying to get a better view of the battle. Zunarit's tribe is assailed from all sides from the Eothic Guard, the personal heavy infantry guard of the Nansir emperors, consisting primarily of Norsirai mercenaries from Sepalor. A Silvendi warrior named Balate, Nayur's brother-in-law, one of the few warriors that respects Nayur, comes to his side. He tells his chieftain that they must regroup. Balate is confident that the Scylvendi victory is all but certain. The Silvendi now have an opportunity to flank the center of Confis's army. Nayur knows something isn't right. Confis has withdrawn his Kudrahil at the battle's onset to throw them against the Scylvendi center. He had given his columns false standards in order to deceive them into thinking he'd deployed his main strength across his flanks. Nayur realizes that the Exalt General wanted the center. "He's doomed. Not even his gods can save him," Balate says to Nayur. Then Nayur understood. His breath grew chill in his breast. The hot fury of bloodletting abandoned his limbs. He could feel only the ache of his injuries and the unspeakable hollow opened by Banut's words. "We must flee." Nayur realizes with dread that the Scylvendi Kore bowmen, the soldiers tasked with shooting down sorcerers, have been positioned behind the center. Then he glimpsed the first flashes of unholy light. Too late. "A school, Bala. Confis has brought a school." 24 black-robed figures take to the sky. They begin to sing the unearthly song, raining hellfire upon the Scylvendi. Nayur possesses a Kore, an inheritance from his dead father. He clutches it tight. One of the schoolmen begins to head toward Nayur and his brother-in-law. White light flashes from the sorcerer's eyes and mouth. It lasts mere seconds. Then the froth of sun-bright fire was gone. Bewildered, Nayur found himself in the center of burnt ruin. Balate and the other Utmote still burned, sizzling like swine on the spit. The air smelt of ash and pork. Knowing the battle is lost, Nayur flees. Yurksolka, the Utmote warrior who plotted with Zunarit to betray Nayur, rides past him. Nayur struggles to cross the river Kiyuth, struggling to free himself from his armor. Nayur glimpses a Kidruhil rider charging towards him. Something exploded against his scalp. Hot blood choked his eyes. He fell to his knees. The rutted ground struck his face. Screams, wails, and the sound of bodies plunging into rushing mountain water. So, like my father, he thought. Then darkness came swirling down. Nayur wakes later, surprised to find that he is still alive. He hears voices nearby and realizes that scavengers pick amongst the dead that litter the field. He stills his breathing and pushes his kore into the mud. The scavengers come close. Who needs gold after a day like this? Imagine the triumph when we return. Imagine the songs. The Silvendi destroyed on their own land. The Scylvendi. When we are old, we need only say that we served with Confis at Kiyuth, and everyone will regard us with reverence and awe. Nayur blacks out once again. He wakes in the early hours of the morning and begins to crawl away, resting upon the body of a dead horse. Nayur, breaker of horses and men, is numb. The Scylvendi, the people of war, his brothers, have been massacred. Suddenly, he hears more voices in the distance. Fawn-hearted wretch, get up and die. Nayur pretends to be dead instead. He overhears two men speaking and realizes it is none other than Ikirai Confis. He travels with his aide and general, a man named Martimus. Martimus asks Confis how he knew he would be able to defeat the Scylvendi. The Exalt General responds, saying, "The Scylvendi are obsessed with custom. That means they repeat, Martimus. They follow the same formula time and again. Do you see? They worship war, but they have no understanding of what it truly is. And what then is war truly? Intellect, Martimus. War is intellect." Nayur remains motionless until the pair leave. Nayur begins to think of the past, of the night his father, Skiotha, was killed. Nayur is a young man, sitting in the white yaksh of his father. There is a slave in their midst, a slave that has infiltrated their home, learned their custom, learned their language, a slave that has stolen the heart of Nayur. He is a Norsirai man with blonde hair. He comes from a place called Ishal. His name is Anaserembor Moingus. The slave addresses Nayur's father, saying, "I would make you a wager, Chieftain of the Utmote. I have watched you, Skiotha, and I have wondered at the measure of your strength. Many here so wonder. Did you know this?" Nayur's father replies, saying, "I have been measured, slave." "But measure," the slave replies, "is not something accomplished and then forgotten, Skiotha. Old measure is merely grounds for the new. Measure is unceasing." Anaserembor Moingus looks to Nayur, and the Norsirai slave's pale face turning to him, the blue eyes bright, more encompassing than any sky, summoning eyes, eyes that yoke, that speak. "Do you remember your part?" his face seems to say. Nayur has been given a script for this moment. From among the seated men, he says, "Are you afraid, father?" A stinging look from his father. The slave has offered challenge to the chieftain of the Utmote, a wager of his life. At last, when his father lay dead, he had wept before the eyes of his tribe, wept with relief. At last, Moingus, the one who called himself Dunyain, was free. Nayur's lover had killed his father. The shame he feels in this moment will haunt him for the rest of his life. Nayur fled, and darkness fell. He skulked between the shining fires of the Nansir patrols. The vast, hollow bowl of night seemed something he might plummet into, so great was the land's rebuke. With his own feet, the dead chased him.